And to dig deeper into how businesses are utilizing technology, I'm pleased to welcome Emily Glassberg-Sands, the head of information at Stripe, a financial services company that allows businesses to accept payments, send payouts, and manage businesses online. She leads the company's data science, growth, business applications, and corporate technology teams. Emily has been at the forefront of bringing industries like agricultural and trucking online. Emily, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
Well, tell me first, let's start off with, tell me about Stripe and what changes have you seen in your customer base?
Yeah, well, as you've noted, Stripe's providing financial infrastructure for the internet economy. So we have millions of businesses from Lyft to your local plumber that are operating on Stripe. And we see a really wide swath of the internet economy as a result and how it's evolving over time. You know, I think the pandemic boom of the internet economy was real and strong, you know, with stores shuttering and businesses increasingly moving online. In 2020, we saw about 1,400 new companies enrolling with Stripe every single day. Now that huge boom of growth in the online economy is starting to cool, but growth definitely continues. Our rates of growth are still about 40% higher than pre-pandemic levels, and some really interesting trends with fast growth in rural economies, in traditionally offline industries moving online. And we're also seeing a really central role that platforms are playing in supporting small businesses in successfully making that transition.
You know, regarding the pandemic, and obviously it's been a crazy time and it's not quite over yet, but can you describe a little bit about how clients and businesses said, we really need to get online, and how they realized, wow, maybe we should have done this a long time ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I love agriculture, just to choose an industry, because it could have been hit so much harder by COVID. And it instead really used the COVID period as an opportunity to build resiliency by moving online. And we're seeing it come out stronger and more modern as an industry as a result. So, you know, we have thousands of U.S. agricultural businesses collectively processing over $1 billion annually through Stripe. To give you a sense of sort of the growth trajectory, over the last 2 years, more than 2,000 of those U.S. ag businesses doubled their payments volume. And, you know, I think there are really a key enabler in this is both the digital infrastructure that allows them to move online, but also platforms who come in and solve problems industry by industry. So in the case of agriculture, for example, Barn to Door and Ambrook stand out as two platforms that are helping thousands of farmers use new financial infrastructure and move this traditional offline industry into really modern and sustainable business models. So Barn to Door provides ready-to-go online stores for food producers. And this means really a whole new revenue stream. It makes it really simple for farmers to get their products directly in the hands of consumers. And that's not going anywhere.
And you mentioned the ag and trucking industries. I mean, change is tough, right? I mean, if you've been doing business a certain way, what were the obstacles, or have been the obstacles that you face in convincing people this is the right way to go?
Yeah, you know, I think there can be sort of a knee-jerk reaction that e-commerce is e-commerce and it's really for the online or digital native sector. And I don't actually think that's what we're seeing in the data, or that's what we're seeing in the world. In fact, I think more and more traditional industries are recognizing the opportunity to move online. And that doesn't necessarily mean their full business moves online, but they can still be enabled by digital financial infrastructure. So, you know, trucking is an interesting example because, you know, trucking is sort of the opposite of what you would think of as e-commerce, maybe even more so than farming. And yet we're seeing our digital infrastructure be adopted actively and really help trucking companies, grow revenues and solve longstanding inefficiencies and build resilience. So just to give you a sense of some of the inefficiencies I'm talking about in trucking in the past, you know, there were payments to unload trucks. Previously had to be made in person, and that could mean, you know, waiting hours. delays unloading and underutilization of fleets as a result. There's obviously in trucking the need to find loads to haul that fit the most optimal route. Getting as many jobs into a single day's work as possible is obviously important for utilization of fleets. And then just getting paid and having efficient cash flow and making sure drivers have the cash on hand to refuel or repair their trucks so they can quite literally stay on the road. And all that sounds very brick and mortar, very sort of internet independent. But what we've seen actually is now increasingly online, trucking businesses are solving a lot of these problems, these cash flow challenges, these cost challenges, and getting more access to customers. So Mothership is one example that I love. It's a platform built on Stripe that enables truckers to get paid faster. So it used to be that carriers would do sort of paperwork like invoices or billing. They would slip them underneath a warehouse doors. And Mothership uses Stripe Connect to pay drivers really quickly without paperwork. And there are a number of other examples in the trucking industry. But this is really about increasing revenue and driving down costs and doing it just when truckers and all of the consumers who benefit from their work need it the most. So yeah, whether farmers or truckers or restaurants, really entire industries are waking up to the value of the internet and finding new resiliency with these online financial services.
When a company decides, okay, we're going to make this switch, we're going to go online, what can you give me a little bit behind the scenes, the nuts and bolts of that, how long that takes to set it up, and also then to feel the fruits of that switch and the economic impact of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the short answer is very quickly. So businesses every day go on to stripe.com and they sign up for an account and they can be accepting payments online in the very same day. We are sort of known for payments. Payments was our first act, but increasingly our strategy is to become a one-stop shop for the payments and financial tools that businesses need to succeed in the face of a rapidly shifting economy. And so we're taking that ability to accept payments sort of same day and extending it to other offerings, including a lot in the sort of banking as a service space. So Capital is one of my favorite examples. This is really about providing access to fast and flexible financing so that businesses can manage cash flows and invest in growth and get started on all of that much more quickly than through traditional loan mechanisms, which is really valuable in these volatile times.
Emily, can you just talk specifically about small businesses? Over the years there's been debate on what is a small business, but I would imagine smaller firms are like, well, we don't need to do that, or maybe pre-pandemic at least made that case. How many small businesses do you work with, and is there, do you think that even the smallest of businesses really could use some type of transformation here to move into the 21st century?
Absolutely. I mean, so the answer is we work with millions of small businesses, and the rate of growth for small businesses has been tremendous as they seek to access a broader set of customers, be resilient in the face of the current economic climate, as well as sort of COVID over the last couple of years. And these businesses are not just small, they're everywhere. So a lot of the growth we're seeing is taking place outside of Silicon Valley and outside of large cities. To give you a sense, the US has literally hundreds of cities today with businesses on Stripe collectively processing more than 100 million annually. And in the case of small businesses, we're actually seeing between 2019 and present, small businesses running online in rural communities have grown their contribution to US GDP about a third faster than small businesses in urban communities. So tons of small businesses using Stripe, some using us directly, many using us through the platform partners that I mentioned earlier. And those small businesses, aren't isolated to large cities, aren't isolated to tech hubs. They really are across the U.S. and helping revitalize rural communities.
My last question, deals with broadband, and everyone on the East Coast thinks everyone in the country has great internet. So I wanted to ask you specifically about rural parts of the country and the challenges there. Are you able to go into those parts of the country, and also do you run into some internet problems?
So I wouldn't say in the case of the US that access to internet has been a major impediment to our ability to serve users. You don't need a super high-speed connection. You can process a bunch of stuff directly from 3G or 4G or 5G on your phone, and so that hasn't to date been an impediment. But I'm actually from Bozeman, Montana, and the house I grew up in doesn't have great internet, so I'm well aware that there's still progress to be made in terms of internet access across the U.S., and I think that'll open a bunch more equality across locations. But in the case of Stripe in particular, we haven't seen that as an impediment to businesses lighting up online.
Emily Glassberg-Sands, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your input today.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
And that brings us to the end of our second segment of A More Perfect Union. Thanks again to our sponsor, Altria, for supporting today's program. Please join us back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for our third and final segment, Consensus Builders, where we'll discuss the growing political divide and how we might disrupt this notion and find the missing middle. We'll be joined by former Congressman David Jolly, Ryan Clancy from No Labels, and more. See you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Till then, I'm Bob Cusack. Thanks for joining us.